Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at, well, some really unique source material. It's a personal account that brings together claims of direct spiritual contact, findings of specific physical evidence, and some very personal takes on ancient religious texts.
That's right. This source presents a narrative that's built, it says, on an ongoing conversation with a spiritual figure. And it connects that dialogue straight to discoveries the speaker claims to have made. Things like giant human remains and, well, what they call mythical creatures.
And the real core of the argument in the source is how these alleged physical finds link up directly with interpretations of different texts, especially focusing on ideas about end times and judgment.
Exactly. So our goal here in this deep dive is really to unpack these pretty extraordinary claims as the source presents them. We're going to trace what the speaker says they were told, what they were shown, and look closely at the specific texts and ideas they use, sticking just to what's in this particular source material.
Okay, let's get into it then. The central idea right from the start of the source is this notion of a direct, continuing conversation with a spiritual entity who the speaker says is Jesus.
And according to the source, this entity apparently voiced a specific concern in one of these talks. The speaker recounts being asked, if they'd shown people about the giants, the DNA reports, the dragon, the fish, and if they'd read the relevant texts to them.
Right, and the answer, as the source tells it, was basically, yes, they had, but nobody is paying attention, or the reaction wasn't really what was expected.
Hmm. This reported frustration seems to kind of lead into what the source presents as the speaker's own origin story for these discoveries. They talk about a specific day, a war day, when they sort of woke up and felt something in the woods calling my name.
Okay, and this is where the story in the source really starts to gain momentum. It says they went into the woods that day, found something specific. And later, when the spiritual entity supposedly asked what they found, the reply was, well, I found giants. I found giant human being parts that I was absolutely certain they were giant humans.
Yeah, and digging into the next bit, the source talks about them searching online, about giants in the past. And while searching, apparently a message just popped up in the screen. It said, "These things are for you to see and for others as a test." The speaker really emphasizes this, saying it burned deeply into my mind.
That definitely sounds like a key moment in the source's account. Then things shift a bit. The narrative moves to a time of desperation where the speaker felt they couldn't accomplish their task.
Right. They say they asked for help and got another message, this time reportedly on their TV screen, just look in Morocco.
Look in Morocco, okay. And what does the source say happened when they looked there?
Well, according to the source, they looked specifically in Morocco and claim they found what they identify as a dragon and a fish. And the description is, well, vivid. They were attacking each other, and that fish's neck was cut with what looked like a great and mighty sword.
Wow, okay. And the source mentions they told people about this specific finding. What was the reaction?
The reaction, as reported in the source, from many was dismissal. A lot of them say it is just dirt.
Just dirt.
And this seems to tie directly into the source's whole concept of mud fossils. The speaker claims, and attributes this to the spiritual entity, that these mud fossils were given to them to help people grasp a core idea, at least from the source's viewpoint, that the earth is a creature.
So these aren't just rocks in this view, they're actual remains.
Within this framework, yes. They're presented as tangible evidence, remains of this earth creature.
Okay, so we have these very personal claims to the conversations, finding giant parts, and then these incredibly extraordinary physical claims from Morocco, the dragon, and fish.
Yeah.
The source then makes quite a pivot, connecting these alleged discoveries directly to interpretations of religious texts.
Exactly. The narrative strategy in the source is to take these physical claims and build direct bridges to specific scriptural passages. It argues these findings are like proof. For example, the speaker brings up Luke 19.40.
The part where Jesus says, if the disciples are silent, the very stones will cry out.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And the speaker claims they told people this specifically about their findings, but, quote, they didn't listen. The source also pulls in Habakkuk 2.11 about stones and beams crying out, and even 1 Peter 2.4-5 about people being living stones. It uses these to kind of bolster the idea that maybe even non-living things or certain people could bear witness.
And the connection made between the Morocco findings and Scripture seems absolutely central, doesn't it? It quotes Isaiah 27.1 specifically.
Yes, very specifically, the passage about the Lord punishing Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the twisted serpent, and killing the dragon who lives in the sea.
And the source emphasizes this link.
Oh, absolutely. The speaker is quoted saying, "I showed him, Lord, I showed him," making it crystal clear that in their view, this passage directly relates to their Morocco fish and dragon discoveries. The implication is that the findings prove this prophecy is happening now.
The source also brings in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 26-28, the part about God choosing the foolish things, weak things, lowly and despised things.
Right. And interestingly, this passage is presented in the source as being Jesus's resume. It seems like the source is hinting at something about who gets chosen to see or understand these big things.
Implying maybe it's not the people you'd expect, maybe positioning the speaker themselves within that framework.
That seems to be the implication, yes, that the conventionally powerful or wise might not be the ones chosen for this kind of insight.
Then there's that powerful section in the source drawing a parallel with an Isaiah prophecy attributed to Jesus in the source about people seeing but never perceiving.
Hearing but never understanding.
Yeah, with callous hearts, closed eyes and ears. The speaker claims that most people who attack them haven't even watched their videos, which, within the source's logic, just reinforces this idea of people deliberately refusing to see or hear.
And it contrasts them with those who do see and hear.
Exactly, calling them blessed. And there's a warning, too, that those who actively unsee it and unhear it, well, that path is not going to work out well for them.
Okay, so this whole narrative thread, ignored findings, misunderstood texts, it seems to lead the source towards a pretty strong critique of established authorities.
Definitely. Professors, teachers, religious leaders, they come in for some sharp criticism.
And the source links them to specific negative biblical descriptions.
It does. It quotes Titus 1.16, describing people who claim to know God, but by their actions they deny him, calling them detestable, disobedient, and unfit. And there was another reference to Peter.
Yes, 2 Peter 2.4. Talking about false teachers exploiting people with tales they have concocted and warning their judgment is inevitable. The source then explicitly connects this to angels when they sinned, casting them into hell, saying those are the dragons, the devil, Satan's serpent, locked in the chains, delivering them to be held in gloomy darkness.
Right, and this seems to feed into a really intricate interpretation involving Revelation 20 as well.
It's quite complex, yeah. Drawing from Revelation 20 and that 2 Peter passage, basically the source interprets these to mean the dragon figure Satan, the serpent was bound in chains but then released at a certain point.
When does the source say that happened?
It suggests the end of a 1,000-year binding period was around the late Middle Ages. It even links this to historical accounts of dragon talk from that time.
Okay, so a release then, and then what?
Then there's a described short release, which the source connects to the chaos of the Dark or Middle Ages. But the really crucial claim in the source is that the dragon, after being rebound, is now being released again, currently.
Released again. For what purpose?
According to the source's reading, for their judgment.
And here's where the giants come back in, right?
Yeah.
The source connects this dragon release to the release of giants and these figures called watchers.
Exactly. It explicitly states that when the giants come out of the ground and the chains of darkness are off them, judgment begins. And the speaker claims to be finding these giants all over the earth.
So if this current release is for their judgment, the dragons, the giants, and the giants are supposedly emerging.
Then the conclusion drawn within the source's framework is unavoidable. It's time for our judgment, too. The physical findings are presented as the smoking gun, proof that this specific, scripturally foretold judgment period is starting now.
It's a very tight loop of logic within the source's perspective. Then the source shifts focus again, bringing in another key text, the Gospel of Thomas, which, it says, the spiritual entity told the speaker to look into.
That's right. The source gives some context, describing Thomas as containing secret sayings written down by Didymus Judas Thomas, found in the Nag Hammadi Library, this large collection of texts discovered mid-20th century.
And the source has a strong opinion on why these texts weren't widely known.
Oh, very strong. It claims they were deliberately hidden for about 1,700 years. By the church, which, as we noted, the source is very critical of. Why hide them? Because the source insists they're end times texts.
Meaning crucial for understanding now.
Crucial. The source quotes the speaker saying something like, telling you damn well better pay attention or you ain't going to get to heaven. It presents them as essential reading for salvation in these times.
And the timing of the rediscovery, around 1945, alongside the Dead Sea Scrolls, The source sees that as significant.
Hugely significant. It explicitly links this timing to major world events, the end of the concentration camps, the establishment of Israel, and then directly ties it to the speaker's own subsequent finding of giants. It weaves these together as clear signs that judgment is imminent.
Okay, let's touch on some specific sayings from Thomas that the source highlights. They seem quite important to the overall message. Saying 1, for instance.
Yes, saying 1, whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. The source portrays finding this interpretation as a journey involves disturbance, then marveling.
And then gaining the ability to reign over all. What does the source take that to mean?
It interprets reign over all as basically being able to withstand or overcome those who cannot accept reality. It emphasizes, again, accepting the truth presented, not going along with the mob of delusion and needing to lead yourself through this process. It's about individual awakening.
And other sayings are brought up too, often relating back to the speaker's own situation.
Yeah, like saying around 75, those who are alone will enter the bridal suite. The speaker apparently connects this to feeling pretty alone in pursuing and presenting these findings.
And the parable of the merchant and the pearl, saying 76.
That one's applied to seeking truth. The source frames truth as the unfailing treasure worth giving everything else up for.
Okay. And saying 77, where Jesus says, I am the light.
The source uses that to present a stark choice. You either become light and ascend, or you fester and rot. It also includes that line, split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there, which seems to echo the earlier themes of physical evidence and stones crying out.
Right, finding divinity in the physical. Then there's saying 78, which questions seeking superficial figures.
Yes, dismissing them as a weed shaken by the wind or people dressed in soft clothes like your rulers. The source uses this to argue that such figures, the conventional authorities, cannot understand truth.
There's one the speaker calls embarrassing in the source, saying 79.
Yes. When a woman praises Jesus' mother, he essentially says, blessed are those who hear and keep the word, and predicts a time when being barren will be seen as lucky. It seems used to stress that understanding and acting on this truth is more important than, say, family ties or conventional blessings.
Okay. And saying 80, how does that connect?
That one's linked back explicitly to the earth as a creature idea. It talks about knowing the world leading to discovering the body, and discovering that one's body, presumably the earth creatures, makes the world itself seem not worthy.
So understanding the Earth's true nature in this view changes your perspective on everything else.
That seems to be the point. And finally, the source briefly mentions sayings like 81 about the wealthy reigning and the powerful renouncing, and 82, whoever is near me is near the fire.
Tying it all to getting away from worldly power and money and focusing on this path of truth, which the source equates with being close to the spiritual entity.
Exactly. It reinforces that theme.
So stepping back now, looking at the whole picture presented in this source, it's just an incredible range, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got claims of direct divine chats, alleged physical proof of giants and, well, dragons, all tied into complex readings of Bible prophecy in these hidden gospels like Thomas.
All converging on this narrative of imminent judgment, signaled by these very specific findings. It really is a unique tapestry of claims.
And the source presents the speaker's own role in this as, what, a messenger?
Pretty much. A messenger, maybe even just a paper boy, as the source puts it, just delivering the information. Whether people listen or not is up to them, it seems. Meanwhile, the speaker continues their own research, this Mudfoss University, constantly finding and interpreting these things.
And the source ends with a kind of call to action for the listener.
Yeah, basically encouraging you, the listener, to come out and start thinking about all this. It even mentions reading Revelation loudly to others for extra credit, which really underlines the urgency the source feels about this message.
It's certainly a journey through a singular and, frankly, startling perspective. This source material essentially asks you to consider a reality where spiritual interaction is direct, physical.
Yeah.
Where giants and dragons are part of the geology, and where ancient hidden texts hold the keys not just to the past, but to understanding right now and what's coming next.
It absolutely challenges conventional thinking on multiple fronts: geology, scripture, history, the nature of reality itself, offering this entirely different framework, all pointing towards this idea of impending judgment.
So taking everything that's been presented just within this source,
Mm-hmm.
the dialogues, the findings, the interpretations, what might it mean for you listening now to truly try and see with your eyes and hear with your ears the things being described? Especially if, as this source insists, doing that is vital for understanding the times we live in and, well, navigating the future. What really stands out to you from this unique account?